So I think it's worth addressing the recent reports that have been circulating around all over online regarding Bulls Executive Vice President Artruas Karnisovas and how he is evidently wanting to see how this team looks like post a Zach Lavine trade. It's been reported that he is letting teams around the league know this when they're asking about other players on the roster not named Zach Lavine, that they're not going to be available at this point in time. Now, this was first reported by Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago. I'll leave a link to the article in the description in case you want to read into it further. And the reason I take a report like this more seriously is because I personally believe Casey Johnson is one of the most credible media reporters out there covering the Chicago Bulls. I might be a little biased because I've had him on the channel numerous times and he's become a friend of mine, but either way, if the reports are true and AK is indeed wanting to wait and see how this team looks when there is no Zach Lavine, oh boy, we might be in for a fan revolt of this franchise if that ends up happening. But I did want to add some color on what this could potentially mean, why AK would be taking this approach, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it in the comments. So what's going on, everyone? You've been listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I think it's been abundantly clear, I don't even need to state it at this point, but we know that this team, I should say the current iteration of this roster anyway, is cooked. They're done. We've known that for a while. Might have taken some a little longer to realize that. Even I myself, I thought the Bulls were going to be better than most people were giving them credit for going into the season. But sitting here, 5-14, most likely about to be 5-15 after tonight's game. If it wasn't clear before, it is now that this team is done for. I would even go as far as to say that the season is over this early into the season, because digging yourself that deep into a hole, already 9 games below 500, do you know how well they need to play to even get back to being 500? Do you know what kind of win streaks they need to be going on that we need to start seeing in order for them to get back to that mark? And it's not like teams in front of them are just going to suddenly start losing unless they see a significant injury of sorts. So yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this season is already over before even entering December. The Bulls aren't even going to be making the play-in at this point. But anyway, that tangent aside, this team is done. And we know there are going to be changes as we near closer to the trade deadline. Now, how much change will it actually be? Well, that remains to be seen, because if we're going to go based on AK's comments and wanting to see what this group looks like post a Zach Lavine trade, there is a world where we maybe only see Lavine get traded, maybe Andre Drummond or some other rotational players. Now, my thoughts on AK taking this approach, and again, for the purposes of this video, we're going to assume that this is in fact true, that he's not interested in trading other guys until they get a feel for what the team would look like without Zach Lavine. A few things, and I'll start with the approach that gives him the benefit of the doubt, because right now no one is. Everyone is going all in on AK, but it's very possible this is just a tactic to drive the price up for some of the other guys outside of Lavine. Because look, as good as DeMar DeRozan is, even as good as Vucevic is despite his recent struggles, they know they're not going to be able to get much for these guys. Not when DeMar is on an expiring deal, and any team taking him will know that they have to pay for him after the season or lose him for nothing. And then for Vucevic, yeah, a starting center, but that contract now is going to be getting harder and harder to trade. And if you know this, maybe you take the approach of, hey, these guys aren't available right now. To the point where if you make a team desperate enough, hey, maybe they try to sweeten the offer to make AK consider moving them. Now, I want to be clear, I doubt that actually is the case, because if other GMs are smart, they're not going to overpay for DeMar or Vucevic when they know they can likely just wait for the Bulls season to implode and AK is forced to move them for pennies on the dollar. But it's just a theory that gives them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. The other benefit of the doubt that I'm going to give him here is, one, we don't know everything that is going on behind the scenes, right? We have to trust what the media reports to us, and also just judging by the way players are acting both on and off the court, and come to our own conclusions. But what I'm getting at is maybe there is a world where the front office, and even the rest of the team and coaching staff, they have seen a noticeable difference in Zach Lavine and his attitude and approach since signing that max contract. Maybe his ego became a little more inflated, the money has gotten to his head, or the status of being a max level player has gotten to his head, to the point where they're not seeing him as a team player anymore. And maybe privately, the players have expressed this frustration to both the coaching staff and the front office behind Zach's back, saying, hey, I really think a lot of our problems could be solved if Zach wasn't on this team. I mean, we see them getting frustrated with his miscues and missteps on defense, not honoring the coverage, as Vooch put it more recently, completely missing backdoor assignments. And then, of course, this goes back to last season trying to do too much on offense and it having a negative impact on the team as a whole. Again, I don't think this scenario is likely either. I'm just trying to fathom and understand why AK would possibly think this is a good idea. But if privately behind closed doors, guys are saying Zach is a different player, he needs to go, and everyone is seeing it inside the locker room, then yeah, I could see AK taking an approach where he says, okay, let's remove what the team is perceiving to be the problem, and let's see if that actually fixes things without doing a full teardown. Because even for AK, I mean, admitting defeat and doing a full teardown when you know you have the talent on the roster is a hard pill to swallow. And even for Bulls fans who don't want to see this team go through another rebuild, maybe he's thinking there is a world where they get a decent return for Zach Lavine in the form of a few solid role players and a pick, and you keep the rest of the group, and then you're able to still be competitive. I still think it's pretty delusional, but the point I'm trying to make is we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. If Vucevic and DeMar are telling AK, we can make this work, but we need more rounded out pieces and skills that Zach Lavine currently does not offer, then maybe he bites. Now that said, the not so benefit of a doubt in AK's approach has me saying the man is completely delusional and not cut out for this type of job. Like if he's going to go on record saying that we see what everyone else is seeing, we're also frustrated and disappointed, it's on us and we're going to fix it. And if your approach to fixing it is just trading Zach Lavine and seeing what happens after, then you clearly don't see what we're all seeing. You're clearly living in a fantasy land, because any person, even with just basic basketball knowledge, would know keeping an aging DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic in their mid-30s while trading away your younger star player in his prime and thinking that is somehow going to completely turn things around, you're out of your mind. Sure, maybe parts of the defense get better, maybe you don't have the battles for touches and shot attempts between DeMar and Zach anymore, but the root problems are still going to be there. The offense is still going to struggle when you don't have shooters, and it's still going to struggle when you're trying to build around guys who are 34 and 33 who are starting to take a step back. When you're 5-14, struggling to barely string together wins, and you think hanging on to some of your older veterans on the highest contracts while putting the development of your younger players by the wayside, that all of that is a good idea and is the way to go, yeah, you've lost it. And you're not fit to be running a front office in this business, plain and simple. Now, do I believe this will actually happen? No. I think ultimately they're going to trade Zach. They won't get that great of a haul for him, and they're going to realize, yeah, we need to just revamp the whole roster. Start fresh, try to recoup as many assets in the form of draft capital, and focus on these younger guys who have been playing well recently, and Kobe White and Patrick Williams. Like, really, if after the deadline, all they have done is move Lavine, they keep DeMar, Vucevic, Caruso, and they offered DeMar an extension after missing the play-in, it may go down as one of the worst front office decisions in NBA history. I mean, maybe I'm laying it on thick a little bit there, but really, like, how stupid can you be to do something like that? How can you have such little awareness of what's going on with your own team as well as the landscape of the league? That's malpractice. It's straight up front office malpractice. There's no way to get around it. So anyway, do I like this news coming out that it's essentially going to be a wait and see game that AK wants to do? No, not at all. I think it would be a disaster if you don't overhaul this roster at this point when you're this late into the game and trying to fix what should have been fixed over a year ago. And so my hope is we'll see some semblance of competence as we get closer to the trade deadline from this front office, because really the only thing to look forward to this season is seeing how the Bulls come away at the deadline and how they look as a team. Any regular season wins at this point from here on out isn't really going to matter. But more so, what is the front office going to do to actually fix the problem that they have constructed? I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.